There was a brief break, but we're back. It's the RotoWire Rundown. I'm, of course, Keith Stewart from Read the Line. I am joined by my cohort in crime, the one, the only, the award-winning scribe from RotoWire itself, Mr. Len Hochberg. Len, how are you? Welcome back from the Thanksgiving break. Did you do anything monumental during the holiday long weekend?
Monumental. Well, we had some nice family time. We don't have a lot of family in California here. There are a lot of them, well, in other parts of California and in New York for my family and my wife's family. But we just had a nice day with my son and tried to block out the Giant game as much as possible. But they were competitive for a little bit. So it was a lovely day. It was a nice break. And actually, what I was doing, one thing I was doing, I will tell you, was finalizing my contributions to the 2025 RotoWire Draft Kit, which will be coming out. All kinds of stories, all rankings, predictions, sleepers, busts. We've already had some people asking when that's coming out, and it will be coming out soon. I don't know exactly when. Strategy on drafting, strategy on DFS, strategy on one and done, all kinds of things like that. But I digress from Thanksgiving. How about yourself?
Thanksgiving was great. All of the above on the menu that day is something that I kind of like. So I'm happy to hunker down, go through a couple rounds of eating, the football, all the
Mhm.
above. I checked all the boxes, had a great time. But, without a week in golf, my mind tends to stir a little
Hmm.
bit. And I start to think of all these different things, much like you were looking ahead to 2025. I'm not quite there yet. Thanksgiving always, it's almost a time of reflection, right?
Hmm.
So I was thinking about the first thing that came to mind. There was a couple things I wanted to throw past you, but the first thing that came to mind was this FedEx Fall, right? We just went through 8 events, and there's a lot of talk lately in professional golf, like what's important, what's necessary, what are people watching, what do people like, what do they don't like, or whatever. So I was curious. Now that we can kind of like put bookends on the little fall season that we had there, we had the race to 125 and so on and so forth, Aon Next 10 or whatever else it's called, right? I'm curious what you thought about basically what happened the fall. Remove the President's Cup for a minute because it's not really one of the fall events, but take the 8 fall events, 7 of which were, rinse, rewind, repeat. And I'm curious what you think about all of it.
Yeah, I think whenever there's a question such as this, I always think that people such as me and you and a lot of others who do what we do are inside this golf bubble, and we don't necessarily view it the same way that the general public does. There are, just like a lot of people in a lot of sports, they really don't pay much attention to the regular season of whatever, and then when it comes to the playoffs or something like that, the viewership increases. So not everyone watches with the same eye that we do. And I think that, it's the fall, it's fine. It's more tournaments. It's the hardcore golf fan will watch it and like it. It doesn't get on NBC or CBS or, it gets all exclusively on the Golf Channel. And the third the number, play-by-play guy will do the tournaments and not the first guy or the second guy. And Brandel Chambly has a lot of time off and things like that. So, but I mean, for golf itself, for the PGA Tour, I think it's a very necessary component of what the tour is about and what the tour is becoming, because it's really becoming more haves and have-nots. And the haves are going to have January to August, and the have-nots are going to have September, October, and November. So from that standpoint, it's a very necessary component for a lot of people in the sport of golf.
You know what? I like where you're going with it there. If you look at it in a vacuum, then the golf itself, the 8 tournaments, we had 5 first-time winners. We had the race towards 125, which was compelling in the end. There at Sea Island, I was there on property. A lot of guys that were on the bubble were certainly thinking about it. Joel and Gino, that team were certainly some superstars from that weekend that came away and gave you some great storylines. Outside of that, it always seems like there's more news in golf in the fall than there's ever been, and it all comes from off the golf course. I think what they're doing in the fall is fine. Is it completely necessary and who's watching? I'm not quite sure. And with all the talk of change and everything else that's going on in field size, Maybe it'll become more important down the road. If you only get top 100, you're going to get more guys that, you know, right around that mark, maybe like a Ricky Fowler or some other names, that maybe don't get inside that, that comfort zone going into the fall. So down the road, maybe it can improve a little bit. I think this year was pretty good from an entertainment standpoint for sure. I just wish there weren't so many distractions, and speaking of distractions, one of the main ones comes from the Live Tour, or maybe some of the golfers that are on that Live Tour, or YouTube golf itself. But did you catch any of the Bryson hole-in-one saga that was going on for 16 days?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely tweeted about it, was very interested in it, caught captivated even to the point where, I said that I didn't want him to make a hole in one, not out of anything malicious or anything, just because I wanted to see it keep going. So I did get on my TikTok every day and look for him and look for the video. And it seemed to be out pretty early in the day, at least from where my vantage point in Los Angeles. So I didn't have to look too hard and too far to find it. It did get a little much after a while of 13 shots, 14 shots, 15 shots, and they did a nice job of editing it where we didn't see every shot. That would have been a bit much, but it really was very interesting. I don't know, not to pour water on it or whatever the saying is or anything. I don't know what that translates into people watching golf tournaments. These
Yeah.
are 30-second videos. You don't have to be a golf fan. You don't have to be, you get Bryson, you don't hear from Bryson for 4 hours during a round of golf. And his personality certainly comes out now. He's one of the great transformations in golf because he used to be largely disliked, even considered weird, I think would
Oh,
be
yeah.
fair to say.
Yep.
And maybe he is, but he's had some great people and or whatever to transform him. So I think it was fantastic, and I think those are good, and I like that they're 30 seconds. But I don't know how that translates to people watching golf tournaments.
Well, I tell you what, that's exactly where I was going with this. The seismic shift that's happening around golf media, where everyone is pointing towards these streaming outlets to watch all forms of golf rather than Sunday on the PGA Tour. I mean, when you think about it, he's getting on average like 5 million views a day just on Instagram. Right? I mean, he got 190 million views, and obviously the number's still climbing, right? Because everyone talked about it on Thanksgiving. And, it was like, there was, I'm sure, a bunch of people at everyone's table that had no idea this thing was going on, and they're going to go check it out. But he had 190 million views just between TikTok and Instagram. So, like you and I always talk about this, off show, we're always talking about how Twitter is like the number one septic tank and cesspool of all of golf, right? Like it's like the golf hub, and everyone's always on. Like Twitter golf is the place to be to have a conversation about golf. Well, he only posted the last video there, and it only got like 5 million views. I mean, don't get me
Yeah.
only is right, but he's probably over 200 million views on those other two platforms, which are totally video based. And he put 2 days of it on Facebook, and then he quit there. So when you start to think about what the Golf Channel or the PGA Tour and what they do and how much they lean on basically, the NBCs and the CBSs and the Facebooks of the world, and you see that no one's watching there, right? And that his people are strategically pointing this video challenge towards these other outlets to grow the game. It's it's really interesting to me. If I was sitting down there in Ponte Vedra Beach and I was watching that thing take place, and then I went off for 4 days to go home, be with my family for Thanksgiving, I would have spent the whole time thinking about where is this all going? Another announcement that came out that was very interesting to me was that you had Phil Mickelson team up with Grant Horvat, who is a YouTube player that most people over the age of 40 aren't going to have any idea who he is, right? And Phil's teaming up with him to do a 2v2 series all on YouTube. And Bryson did his Breaking 50 video over the weekend with Tom Brady on a football weekend. I mean, all of this stuff is occupying golf fans' attention. I mean, 5 million, people watching a day on Instagram. That's more than watch, like the final round of any PGA Tour event on a Sunday in season other than the majors, Len. Like, I mean, like, what do you think about all of that? That's pretty, it's like it's a pretty like unbelievable evolution that we're watching take place right now. I mean, forget the fact that Bryson might now be the most popular golfer in the world. I mean, they don't have 100,000 people watch a live event. This guy's getting 5 million a day.
It is amazing. It's remarkable, and it's really a sign of just the culture we live in, how everything is faster and quicker. And it's amazing that people can still sit and spend 3 hours watching a football game or 2.5 hours watching a baseball game. And golf is, from the beginning of a golf tournament on Sunday to completion, what it could be 4, 5, 6 hours, depending on how much time they cover it. So again, I don't know what the translation is to whether this makes golf bigger or better or it detracts from the actual tournaments. But there's definitely a side to this, an industry to this in and of itself. These things are heavily edited and really quick, fast, boom, boom. And that's not real life. That is not real life. That is not real sports. So I'll be fascinated to see if there's any connection to actually golf viewership on TV in the traditional way we've known to watch golf.
I honestly don't think there will be any until traditional golf viewership leans in where these videos are leaning in. You brought it up before and you said it perfectly, right? We're getting to kind of like look behind the curtain with some of these guys. They're showing their personalities, right? And I think that that's what people really want to enjoy. And it kind of takes me to another topic that, like, I think that the Phil 2v2 matches, I think that the Bryson hole-in-one challenge really kind of breaks down the barriers between us and these professional athletes. And I look at the Hero World Challenge this week, and that's the event, the 20-man shootout out there in the Bahamas, which is hosted by Tiger Woods, right? Tiger's never opens up. He had his press conference this morning. What was your feeling after, watching and listening to the press conference and, the first 5 minutes after it? Like, what were your first thoughts?
There were, I think the thing that everyone wanted to know more than anything else is, when are you going to play? How are you? When are you going to play? And there doesn't seem to be any timetable for him to play. I don't know if this was addressed, because what do we have? The PNC Challenge where he plays with Charlie coming up in a couple of weeks or sometime this month. I didn't see that addressed in the transcript. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong,
It was not.
I don't know why that wasn't. Are you going to play with your kid? Because that is really more compelling. Although Charlie's not this cute little kid anymore, he's getting to be a young man, and we all lose our cuteness at some point. But it was always endearing to see him play with. It's not like Justin Thomas playing with his dad. There's no, there's no cuteness there. It's nice and all. So I was very surprised we didn't see that, but it doesn't appear that he will play with Charlie, and and it seems like the genesis is in question. But by and large, and not to be a cynic here, and we talked about this behind the backstage, that he really doesn't say anything about anything. So I don't know, but I do know that he's turning 49 this month.
Yep.
I think his relevance on the PGA Tour on the course is almost bordering on irrelevance. We know he's so important behind the scenes and dealing with LIV and the PAC and the players committee, all these different committees and stuff. But I don't even know if he's going to go play on the Champions Tour.
Trust me. I mean, Tiger's still the needle and all of that. And, he is still the guy that everyone would be dying to see, but he really had nothing to say. And, for me, more of a sign of the times. You talk about a connection to the regular PGA Tour and the product and all of this kind of these other conversations you and I are having right now. I look at the field this year. Like, this used to be, Rory, Tiger, Xander, JT, Jordan, this used to be a stacked field, right? And I looked at the field when it was finally, completely confirmed, on last Friday, and Tony Finau dropped out and he was replaced by Sepp Straka, and I looked at this and I was going, man, I don't think the trend is your friend. 3 years ago, the average world ranking of the 20 guys in the field was 15, and it's 20 this year. So we're not getting the same level of players. And you can't say that, me using that analytic, you can't say then it's not the Brooks Koepkas and stuff not being there, well, maybe it is because they would have been ranked higher, but it's just interesting to me. The draw this week, because Tiger's not playing, is obviously we have Scotty as the betting favorite, almost unbettable at a 2-1 number against a field of his, 19 other of his peers. But then after that, it's like Ludwig and Keegan Bradley and Patrick Cantlay and JT, a lot of these guys weren't really a big part of the story in 2024 for golf. Where's Colin? Where's Xander? Where are some of these guys? It just, to me, it was interesting. And I wanted to bring it up with you. And then the press conference today, I thought it was good timing. And as we, transition into the hero itself, what do you anticipate looking forward to as you're building out your DFS lineups and you look at Albany Golf Course again? We're here for what? We've been coming here since 2015. We missed 2020, so we've had 8 historic editions here. The winners follow kind of a common thread. As you break down the golf course and the unique scorecard that it has, what sticks out to you, Len?
Yeah, I'll get that in a second, but I wanted to follow up on what you were saying. The Hero World Challenge, when it came out, it was this cash grab and this world ranking points grab. And they now have 8 of those during the season that they don't need, that involve more money and more world ranking points, more free guaranteed money, more free guaranteed world ranking points. So we're in a different climate. I wonder if the Hero World Challenges has, outlived its usefulness for lack of a better term. And you can't get these same players here anymore. There's just too many other opportunities. And I know that some of the guys are going over to South Africa for the Nedbank in a week or two. And I'm sure they're getting hefty appearance fees there or something to show up in December. So there's so many more things competing like everywhere for everyone's attention and everyone's dollar and everyone's everything. So I don't know how much more this will go. I mean, you didn't even mention the name that really stood out for me most of being just, anonymous. And that's Aaron Rai, who, I'm sure he's very popular in his own home, but I don't know how many people walking along the property at Albany are going to know, if everyone's going to know Aaron Rai is Aaron Rai.
Oh, Matthew Pavone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole list of guys that are there that just really, when you look at it, you're like, whoa, something's going on here. And I think you're right. All right, so to go back to our second topic of discussion there, just a quick yes or no answer. I'll put you on the spot. If Bryson was putting together a YouTube tournament, right, that was going to be in front of 5 million viewers, right? Do you think the Collins and the Xanders of the world would show up for him versus what this has turned into?
I guess some of them would. I don't know. I think that to have a live tournament is not the same as what we see with these videos. So I know this is not my yes or no answer, but these things are heavily edited and quick and fast and fun, and life and live sports is not that. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll say no.
Okay. I'm with you. We got to see how this plays out, but boy, there's a lot going on in the off season right now as we all get ready for all sorts of things, coming in 2025. But first, let's talk more about Albany Golf Course. You're building out lineups. What specifically are you looking for in order to have a guy beat Scotty Scheffler this week?
I don't know. The Bahamas Police, maybe. I don't know if they,
touche.
One of the challenges with this week, the Hero World Challenge, is that you don't know how many guys come to play. And, it's so, I'm sure they're treated like kings there on the island, and it's just lovely. And I'm sure many of them bring their families. And I don't know how serious they're playing. We haven't seen some of these guys play in weeks or months. Yeah. And maybe once the tournament starts, there's competitive juices start flowing. But I think that once maybe somebody falls a few shots back, I don't know if they have the drive to continue on, to try to compete. But Scotty Scheffler does.
Oh, yeah.
I think Scotty Scheffler will play to the whistle if you were playing in your backyard. He's like the Michael Jordans and the Kobes that will want to rip your throat out at Checkers at the Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
And that's why he won this year, last year, and finished second the 2 years before that. So I know he's going to play hard the whole way. Specifically at this course, I think you'll agree there are 7 holes where they're the big scoring holes. It's kind of a weird course where there are this Ernie Els designed 5 par 5s, 5 par 3s, and the 5 par 5s, and there are 2 short par 4s, 1 drivable, 1 semi-drivable, around 360 or something like that.
Sure.
And last year on those 7 holes, Scotty Scheffler shot 15 under out of his 20 under total. So that's where you're looking guys who can really score on those, especially on the par 5s. There are 5 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's tough to gauge the temperature on how hard these guys are going to try. But for everyone that's taking this in and they want to put together their serious lineups or a serious betting card, we've got to do our due diligence. And the first thing I'm really targeting is approach play, and not so much with a wedge in your hand. I mean, you're talking about the highest ranked guy in this field. I think is Sepp Straka, like 39th in the world. I mean, all the guys are good with a wedge in their hand. I think you really got to focus on those 5 par 5s and the 4 par 4s over 470, where these guys are hitting like 65% of their approach shots from over 175 yards. So 200 plus with an iron in your hand is really a place to separate. And those are the guys that you're looking for. Here's a little bit of secret sauce for you. 9 of the top 10 on last year's leaderboard were also in the top 10 for strokes gained around the green. This is grainy island Bermuda, right? Against the grain, into the grain. A lot of these green surfaces, 4,500 square feet isn't the biggest, but they also get smaller because they run off on the sides. They kind of melt the edges away. And another one that most people don't kind of like dig into, but if you could avoid 3-putting this week, these greens are very tiered for as big as they are. And it creates a lot of second putts that are in that 4 to 8 foot range. If you can avoid 3-putting this week and you're great around the greens, I think that you have an advantage and you have a chance to take down Mr. Scheffler. I mean, I really think that those two are the keys because, all these guys are just really impeccable ball strikers when it comes down to it. And if we can all say that they are trying their best, right? And they're not just there to get away with their wives and their families and spend the week in Bermuda, Bahamas, strike that. But then I think that those are some of the keys that have me leading in the direction that I am. I mean, you got to be able to score. I mean, Scotty won at 20 under, and he had 6 bogeys over 72 holes. I mean, that's like 20-something subpar scores and then a couple of eagles. He's like, and if you look at the weather, there's not going to be much wind. So that scares me. That makes you think that, that you got to get to 20 under. And then obviously you got to see where Mr. Scheffler stands at the end of all of that, where we always know where he does stand, which is at the top of the DFS board. So when you look at those guys, there's 3 names at the top. Scotty's obviously the leader. When we start to break down DFS strategy and people want the names, Len, they always do. Give me who you got in the 10K land.
Yeah. Just the only name in the 5 figures for me is Scotty Scheffler. I think, he's 11.9. He's $1,700 ahead of number 2, Patrick Cantlay. Fun fact about the Hero World Challenge. Last year, Scotty Scheffler was not the top price guy. Last year, Victor Hovland was the top price guy by $100 over Scotty Scheffler. Found that when I started to write up this year's article. Like I said, he will play to the whistle no matter where he is. Even if he's out of it, he will come out for the 4th round and try his best and try and go as far up the leaderboard as he can. Now, obviously, at 11.9, you pretty much need him to win. I expect him to win. The field is not that strong. When you play someone who's $11,900, you have to dip down lower. And when you ask me that question, I will start dipping down there as well. But I have no fear dipping down this week in such a small field.
Yeah, with a small field, then, of course, some of these other categories, like the 9,000s, only has 2 players. You've got one guy who has what, 4 straight top fives, and then the other guy, his nickname is Bermuda Burns, right? So there's 2 guys in the 9K land. Who do you like in the 9,000s when given the choice, Len?
Justin Thomas always comes to play this tournament. I think a big part of it is his friendship and respect for Tiger Woods. He always wants to perform well here. He always often wanted to beat Tiger Woods here, and that won't be the opportunity this year. But I think that their relationship, one of the tightest players on tour with Tiger Woods, will always give his all this week. I don't think you'll ever see Justin Thomas mail it in on Sunday if he's far behind. He has too much respect for Tiger Woods, and it shows in the results. He's had a number of top fives, as you said. I think he finished third last year. I like him too. Certainly, and he was right there with Scheffler last year, or third anyway. Yeah.
Well, it checks out because JT is one of the top 3 short game players in the field every year that he comes out. And it just seems to be kind of a quiet edge that allows these guys to creep up the leaderboard. You got to remember, to score on those 5 par 5s and those 2 drivable-ish par 4s, you're doing a lot of scrambling with a wedge around these greens to make birdies and eagles. So, it's not always just a safe par, folks. Just throwing that out there. 8Ks, we've got 3 guys. Russell Henley, here's a name, right? Russell Henley, Tom Kim's been there before. Wyndham Clark's been there before. But there's 3 guys walking down the street in New York City. No one's going to know who they are, right, when it comes to the PGA Tour. And they're here, and they're in 8,000 land. So who do you like in the 8K range?
I really, this tournament, maybe more than any other, it's such an anomaly. I look at things other than the golf. I look at what's going on. Sure, there's the golf. Of course, it's a golf tournament. But who's coming to play? Who's trying hard? Who's mailing it in? Who's going to fight till the whistle? Things like that. Wyndham Clark was terrible last year. He finished behind Tiger. He finished 19th, and the only guy he beat was Will Zalatoris, whose back was still being stitched up from back surgery. He was 22 shots behind Scotty Scheffler and 9 behind Tiger Woods. I think some ungodly number behind an aging Tiger Woods who never plays. So I think he maybe something to prove is probably too strong a word, but I think he will not want to have the same result this year. And quite frankly, over the second half of the year, he had a bit of a slump in the middle of the season, but toward the end of the season, he had a lot of top 10s, top 15s. He's number 6 in the world for a reason. I think he will have a good week when he's on. He really is one of the best players in the world.
Okay, let's skip down to the 7,000s. Some interesting guys down here. Now you start to get a mix, a little bit of some of the DP World Tour guys that have been playing. So, if a guy's been playing a busy fall schedule over there and he comes here, does that make you lean that way? Or who do you like in the 7,000s? Is it just maybe the popular names that we should be picking?
I think we saw during the fall season that trying to gauge whether, this guy hasn't played in 2 months, so I'm not going to play him. That's just, there doesn't seem to be any validity in that. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. These guys can roll out of bed and hit it to 6 feet. So none. I've learned my lesson there. But I do like 2 guys in the 7,000s, and I'm going to be more heavily weighted down lower because I think some of these guys, maybe calling some of these guys lesser guys is too strong a word, but I think some of them, even the newcomers, the Pavones that we talked about, Aaron Rise, I think they are going to have something to prove, and they can't believe they're here around Tiger Woods and Scotty Scheffler and being invited to this tournament, and they probably dreamed about it and all. So I think we're going to move down here a little bit heavier. Sung Jae Im played very well second half of the season. He played here last year. He finished 8th. It sounds like that's great, but that's sort of middle of the pack. Finishing 8th in this tournament, but I do like him. And Sahith Theegala is all the way down at 7,300. Great with his wedge. He wasn't so great this past year, but we've seen historically he's a really good player around the green and on the green. And this is his first time here. I think these first timers are going to be a little more wide-eyed, take it a little more seriously than guys who've come, a lot of times. And so I expect him to really try and do well as well this week.
Well, the in the 8 editions that they've had there, we've had 3 rookies. Obviously, the first one is going to be a rookie, Bubba Watson, back in 2015. But we've had 2 more rookies, guys that had 0 course experience, come in and win this thing. So it wouldn't surprise me if somebody that hadn't played there before won it because of the level of player that comes to this thing year after year. And when you get down to the 6Ks, how about the level of player we have down here? I mean, it's mathematically possible. You could take 2 of the 10,000 guys, including Scotty, and then still build out your lineups with a bunch of 6K guys, which, I mean, these guys aren't your usual 6K guys, right? Where you and I are kind of like just making up content around names that, like, really, will this guy make the cut? Won't they make the cut? There's some really good players down here. Who do you like in the 6,000s to complement your Scheffler at the top of the board?
Yeah, not only are they not your usual 6K guys who have to pass 145 guys to
Yeah.
to move up into the top 10. They only have to pass eight guys or 10 guys or 6 guys, depending on where they are. So I could easily see building a lineup with Scotty Scheffler at 11.9 and Justin Thomas at 96. And that brings you to what, 2150, more than 40% of your budget with those 2 guys, and filling it out with whatever you have to fill it out with. 3 guys in the 6,000s. Keegan Bradley, 6,500. For
Yeah.
better or worse, Keegan Bradley is on display every time he goes out there now. I don't think he can ever take it easy, or, I think he's got to play to the end. He's got to show everyone who's going to be on the Ryder Cup team, or maybe be on the Ryder Cup team, the way you conduct yourself, the way you have to carry yourself in public, and try and never give up. And I think, and he's played this tournament 6 times. I think he's played it as much as anyone else who's in the field this year. He hasn't played, he's only played twice over the past decade, but he's had some good results here as well. And I think he's another guy. He can't mail it in. You can't see him just going through the back 9 on Sunday and not giving a flying whatever. Yeah. Nick Dunlap, 6,400. Probably a year ago, you asked Nick Dunlap, he's going to be here. Like, what? I'm like a student at Alabama. What are you talking about? So I think he's really looking to play very well this week, and was one of the busier guys in the fall and played well in the fall. And Matthew Pavone, even though he's $6,000, and even though he was terrible from June onward, just dreadful on the PGA Tour. In fact, little sneak peek at the RotoWire draft kit coming out. We were each asked to pick sleepers and busts, and Matthew Pavone is my bust. I don't expect anywhere near what we saw from him a year ago. He'll still get into big tournaments and stuff because of his world ranking and stuff. But at 6,000, you just pass 5 guys and you've justified your price. So I think every year at the Hero World Challenge, just pick the $6,000 guy, the lowest guy, and and you can and easily fit him into your lineup, and it works out.
I love the strategy, and I also love the thoughtfulness outside the arena, right? You're like, what are these guys bringing to the table that's intangible, that lets you know that they are going to try to go toe-to-toe with Scotty this week, and that they really want to beat him. And a lot of that had, was a consideration for me, because when you start to compare these guys head to head, and the guys, 11th in the field in, let's say he's 11th in the field in approach, but he's top 30 in the PGA Tour at approach. You're like, wow, man, like this is a tough field. Like, these guys are all, it's like truly splitting hairs. I did look at some of the intangibles that, I feel like are going to push these guys to really compete hard this week and go for 72 holes and try to take down the world's number one. My first betting lean for the week at plus 1,200, Patrick Cantlay. There's not a doubt in my mind that Patrick Cantlay, I know he hasn't won since August of 22 at Wilmington in the BMW, but Patrick Cantlay hasn't forgotten how to play golf. We saw it all on display at the President's Cup, and that's the last time we saw him. Patrick Cantlay doesn't ever show up and just wing it. He is just not that guy. It's not the fabric of his being. And we also know that behind the scenes, he tends to be the mouthpiece for Tiger Woods. So I think there's a little bit of a relationship there. Patrick hasn't played in this event in a while. He really appreciates his time off. Why all of a sudden is he here? Well, we know why he's here, because all of these meetings are going on, and Tiger is probably like, hey, why don't you come to this tournament and we'll talk about some more things, right? So I think that Cantley is really focused for this week. And I mean, here's a guy, I think he's the second best player in the field when it comes to a world-class, well-rounded skill set. And you know what? He's played here before, top 5 before here. He knows the golf course. And, at the end of the day, he's in the top third of the field for approach, around the green, and putting on Bermuda grass. I mean, those are the key components that I'm looking for. So I think that he can really contend. And I think at the top of the board, you're going to see a lot of people going after JT. Obviously, people are going to go after Scotty. But from a betting sense, Patrick's he's like 3rd or 4th on the betting board, which to me provides value in a field that has no value with a ton of short odds. So I'm going to go with Cantley first. And then the second guy is I'm going to go with Scotty's roommate, which I assume he is for the week. I don't know if all their families came out there, but he's normally his roommate out there on tour when they travel, just the guys. And that's Sam Burns. He's probably the only guy in the field. He's number 1 in the field, birdie or better. He's probably the only guy that can go out there and make 30 birdies this week and keep up with Scheffler. If Scheffler is if he's got all the cylinders firing, right? So I love Bermuda Burns on these greens. He's the number 1 putter on Bermuda grass here. The short game is good. Yes, the approach isn't nearly as good as it is for Scotty or Patrick or some of these other guys, but Burns has finished 3rd here in 2021. I think that it's his type of golf course. The more par 5s and birdie opportunities you give Sam Burns, the more times you put a wedge in his hand, the more times he's going to make birdies. And quite honestly, folks, there's an undercurrent today. You have to be able to beat Scotty Scheffler this week. He's come in second, and first in this event in the last 3 years. So you have to have guys that are comfortable around Scotty, and Sam Burns is definitely one of them. So those are my 2 guys. I'm going with the Iceman down in the islands, and then I'm going with Bermuda Burns.
Another connection with Cantley and Tiger Woods, Joe LaCava.
Yep.
I started to think, though, that Patrick Cantley might not be the best guy for these TikTok videos, though. Doesn't seem that would be his skill set. I think he's well suited for this week and a lot of things on the golf course, but hole-in-one challenge, not necessarily for him. And I was struck by you said that Burns and Scheffler could room together. I mean, really, they can't afford their own room. I mean, who gets the top bed? Does Scheffler get the bottom bunk, or does he have to go up because he's the top guy? He's got to go on the top bunk. How does that work?
Room is a relative term, right? This isn't a college dormitory. They're renting a house that probably has 6 bedrooms. They're in different wings. But these guys, because there's a lot of free time surrounding this tournament, right? Yeah. They're there for the week. They're going with their friends. And the point we've made from the start is that, who's there to work and who is there to hang out and have a nice week in the Bahamas. I mean, last place gets $150K. So you're covered for the week for traveling there. And first place gets $1 million. So at the end of the day, I think that, golly, Scotty's going to be there. He's going to be, right? It's just you can bank on it. And I need guys up at the top that have proven that they have the wherewithal to be able to take him on and not be intimidated. If it's Nick Dunlop against Scotty on Sunday afternoon, man, I have concerns, and I have more concerns there than I do if it's Bermuda Burns. That's all I can say. I guess Sam's more used to being beat by him. I don't know, because they play together more often, but maybe you can get under his skin a little more. That's where my head's at on all of this,
No, that's a good point. I think that the friendship there, that Burns will want to beat him. And if he's anywhere close on Sunday, he will grind it out to the end to try and beat Scheffler, even though it's this week. I think that once the tournament starts and once they're in the thick of it, they're not thinking, oh, we're just in the Hero World Challenge. This isn't, Riviera or the Masters or whatever. I want to beat Scheffler. So, yeah, I could see that.
Well, this is our last competitive week of 72 holes of individual stroke play for the guys. The ladies wrapped up 2 weeks ago. So, last rundown for a while there, my friend. Any thoughts as we start to put a bow, pardon the pun, for gift giving season, but as we start to put a bow on 2024, you want to do one more show where we talk about maybe the year in review and maybe a look ahead to the 4 majors? You want to do something like that?
Yeah, that would be good. That would be great. I enjoy these. I will miss them for a month. Not always. It's a little early out here, so part of me won't miss them. But it's well, I'll miss them when they're not here. So yeah, I would love to come back any week and talk golf with you at any time, my friend.
All right. Well, we'll do it in a couple weeks leading into Christmas or whatever. We'll take a week off and then we'll come back. We'll put together an agenda. We'll get it out for everybody. And the rundown always runs on for sure. Everyone, enjoy the Hero World Challenge. Enjoy a little candor from Tiger. Len, I appreciate you getting up early. I forgot that 6 a.m. your time was his press conference today. Good job on your part. Congratulations. That's really committed to the rundown cause, which I appreciate. That's why you're award-winning scribe from RotoWire. Folks, on behalf of Len Hochberg, I'm Keith Stewart from Read the Line. Have a great couple weeks. We'll talk to you soon.